truly and sincerely, this block is to me the most potent of all the stuff. And the reason I say that, and just to come back to this, is that there are people every day who defend themselves through sheer will and indignation than there ever will be trained fighters who get attacked and successfully defend themselves. And I believe that from the bottom of my heart, and all the research and everything I've done has proven that statistically, you know, there are so many people that are almost victims of violence, and their awareness, their instincts, their intuition, their ability to just assert themselves in the moment and deter or circumvent an attack, that happens so much more than the true dramatic victimization that we see. I was driving home one day, and I'm always studying, and I'm listening to a radio interview with this guy, Howard Gardner, who at the time had written a book called Frames of Mind, and he was a social scientist studying human beings. And I'm driving along, and he says he believed that 80% of your motivation was derived from your expectations. And he said it just like that, and me being a student of performance psychology, I said to the radio, "What?" And he repeated it again, which was amazing, as if he was listening to me on the radio. He goes, "I believe that 80% of expectations derive from your, or motivation is derived from your expectations." And I was like, holy shit. And I went home and I wrote on a pad of paper, motivation, expectation. And I just stared at those two words. And I was like, okay, that makes sense to me. And I started thinking of different examples of that when I actually did something, it was because I was motivated. And when I didn't do something, I was demotivated. And what actually inspired me to do something or not do something was what I was visualizing about that. And thinking about that, I realized, well, that's the next block in this, that I needed to have a positive expectation to stay motivated, but my expectation was always in my head. It was something I was conjuring up. It was how I was visualizing. Does that make sense? And if you think about, walking up to a weight, and usually when you throw it or toss it and you drop it, it's because just before you went to do it, you visualized that you weren't going to make it. True or untrue? Where do you keep motivation? Is it in your pocket? Is it your glove compartment? Is it in a PDA? Where do you keep your motivation? In your mind. Where do you keep your expectations? In your mind. And where do you visualize? In your mind. So right away, the first segment of everything happens inside your mind. And watch how this flows. Anyone notice that this kind of looks like an electrical flow chart? Okay? So if there's a circuit that blows over here, or a switch isn't flipped over here, you're not going to get the current or the energy to make shit happen. The next block that's key here is neuroassociations, neural-brain association symbol. How does your brain link up a symbol? The visual I always give is this, and I want the truthful answer. How many of you here are afraid of a knife? Let me see a show of hands. Everyone put their hands up here, okay? How many of you own a knife? Let me see a show of hands. How is it you're afraid of a knife and you own a knife? So obviously this is one of Blauer's trick questions. What you're not afraid of is the knife, is you're afraid of a knife fighter. You're really not afraid of a knife fighter. If I said, this is a famous knife fighter in jail with no weapon, you'd go, hey man, I heard you, But while you're talking to him, if I pressed a button and the door opened and I threw a knife at him, you suddenly go, oh shit, you'd be like, looking for a shield or something, because now he's a knife fighter with a knife and he can get to you. So when you peel the onion, you realize that, I'm afraid of a certain thing happening to me. I'm getting maimed, I'm getting killed, and you identify that. In self-defense, they talk about knife fighting as expect to get cut. Anyone ever heard that? Expect to get cut. Stupidest thing I ever heard. That'd be like, I'm teaching you driving. Jesse, expect to get in a car accident first day out. I'm teaching you kids how to swim. Hey, Susie, Johnny, expect to drown, but I'm CPR qualified. Why would you motivate yourself through a negative? And I'm making fun here, and I'm not trying to be facetious, but I've been in a couple of knife situations, and I've only ever cut myself screwing around with a knife. And they weren't Jack the Ripper coming at me, but they were credible knife situations that I had to deal with, but I didn't get cut. Okay? And all I'm saying here is you don't start off with negative baggage. You learn how to manage your fear, and you get focused on stuff. What the tactical community means to say is, if you're going to get cut in a knife fight, don't get cut here. Don't get cut in the subclavian artery. Don't get cut in the femoral artery. Don't get cut across, you know what I'm saying? So you got to learn where not to get hit and learn where to not get cut, and so on and so forth. I don't want to get graphic here, but I just want to show you how everybody here, because of things that we pass around the universe, is afraid of this or afraid of that. If I had a guy, you know, walking down the hallway looking, going, you know, where's Hollis? And I said, hey, Hollis, there's this guy outside. He's like 6'3". He's got cauliflower ears. It looks like his face he's been in 100 street fights. His nose has been broken like 500 times. He's, you know, he's got a limp, and he's got you know, he's all freaked out and he's looking for you. I mean, the visual of that would freak you out. And Hollis would be like going, holy shit, what do you mean he's looking for me? He said, I don't know. He said he wants to fight you. Well, tell him I'm not here. I mean, you know, I'm going to call the cops. You'd be all freaked out just by the visual. But if I showed you a YouTube video of him getting his ass kicked, and that's why his face looks like that, suddenly Hollis is looking at him getting his ass kicked going, where's the guy, right? Because suddenly, psychologically, you go, I see myself doing that too. And that's the fear management transition there, what I like to call as a predator-prey reversal. Because when somebody's going, hey, you, at that moment there's something about that negative predator energy that makes you assume that you must be the victim in this play. And you need to find different tools to make that switch for yourself. Does that make sense?